March 8th, 2021 regular business meeting of City Council. During this meeting, we're going to have a public hearing and a citizen comment period. If you wish to make a comment during this time, the phone number to call will be 844-9200. You will hear a prompt. When you hear the prompt, you're going to enter the code 398145, followed by the pound sign, at which time you'll hear question and answer session has started. You'll press the star followed by the number 6. If you wish to speak in the meeting, you'll press 1, and then you'll wait for the commentator to tell you that it's your turn to speak. And at that time, you'll just get on it and you can give your comment. And your time limit on this is limited to 4 minutes. So around the 3.5 minute mark, you might hear someone tell you that you're 3.5 minutes. At that point, start winding down your comments and we'll move on to the next person. With that, we'll move on to item number 2. Item number 2 is to adopt the meeting agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the meeting agenda as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Short. Any discussion? Okay, let's take a vote. All in favor, say aye, and a show of your hands.
Aye.
Aye, I do have my hand up. If you want to make that a 4-0 count just because I'm not visible, I understand.
We're a 5-0. Any opposed? Hearing no opposed, this motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Dr. Hofstadter and everyone. Item number 3. Item number 3 is to consider the consent agenda. Has everybody had a chance to review the agenda? Is there a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Short. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing no opposed, this motion carries 5-0. Thank you all. Item number 5 is matters for council. I don't have a whole lot tonight, but I do want to mention that February was Black History Month, and Vice Mayor and I were invited to a Black History performance at the Zeus Theater, sponsored by Rise, and it was a very good presentation. It had young people reenacting some people from our past, and they did a great job. And then they had a keynote speaker come in that played the part of Frederick Douglass, and the history that he put out in just 25 minutes was unreal. I learned a lot in 25 minutes, so it was a very tasteful, very good presentation put on by Rise and the youth of our community. So I want to thank those folks for that, and I think the mayor would, our vice mayor would probably echo my sentiment. It was well done and a great program. With that said, I don't really have anything else that I was going to bring up for matters for mayor. So we got matters from council members. Are there any council members that wish to make a statement tonight, or Dr. Hofstadter with his? Oh, one more thing from mayor. I got my COVID shot Saturday. No, nothing bad happened after the COVID shot. No allergic reactions. My arm didn't fall off. It was a great experience, and they tell me in 2 weeks that I should be resistant of the COVID virus. So all is good. Now I will say it's time for matters from council. Anyone have anything they would like to share?
I wish I had my video up. I'm still working at it. I don't know why my computers are all failing on me tonight. But I think you hit the nail on the head of what I was going to say, Mr. Mayor, that the vaccines are more and more available now that the Johnson & Johnson one-shot vaccine is available. The folks out at Augusta Health have worked really hard, and they can now schedule things through the Augusta Health website. So if you get on the Augusta Health website, follow the link to the vaccine scheduling. There are criteria there, and they say it in bold letters multiple times that if you show up and you do not meet the age or the health criteria, they will not give you a shot. So that, you know, don't try to sneak in and think they'll just give it to you because you're there. But if you do meet the criteria, then they can get you scheduled, and they can get you scheduled within the next few days, it looks like. I got on today with a patient while we were in a room, and they still had some appointments for tomorrow afternoon as of about 3 o'clock this afternoon. So, I think that's going to be a great way to get people through. Many of you may have noted that they celebrated vaccinating their 10,000th patient, which is pretty remarkable when you figure that they had 0 patients by mid-December. So to have gotten 10,000 people through in that time frame is just really remarkable, and they're doing a great job. As some of you have said, that's pretty smooth out there. So I encourage people to get that done. Look at the criteria on the website, and if you meet the criteria, please get yourself scheduled, get yourself immunized. As the mayor said, most people tolerate it just fine. Certainly there are some folks that will have some side effects, and they will talk to you about that, but most of us have tolerated it just fine, and that's the way we go forward around here. Our numbers are still looking good if you look at the Department of Health site, but they have not gone to 0. So, we need to keep working at it and keep protecting each other. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Hofstetter. Anyone else? Sounds like we're good to go. All right. For those that are watching us live tonight, you'll notice we've got a lot more little TV screens showing up on our screen tonight. We've got the Waynesboro Planning Commissioners on board with us tonight. We're about to do a public hearing where they'll participate and have involvement. So if you're from the Planning Commission, go ahead and turn your cameras on now, and we'll let everybody see who our Planning Commissioners and staff are within the Planning Commission. With that, we'll come to item number 6. And item number 6 is to have a public hearing with the Planning Commission to receive comments on a request by the Waynesboro Planning Commission to rezone certain parcels from light industrial to local business or mixed business use. I want to welcome Chairman Boyles to the Planning Commission to our meeting tonight. And Chairman Boyles, if you would like to convene the Planning Commission, and we can confirm that there's a quorum in attendance, we'll move on.
Okay, I would like to call to order the meeting of the City of Waynesboro Planning Commission for Monday, March 8th, 2021.
All right, thank you, ma'am. We have a quorum. I noticed, I'm fortunate I'm part of the Planning Commission, and I see Shannon and the whole crew here tonight, so we've got everybody on board from the Planning Commission. I want to welcome each of you to the City Council meeting tonight, and we'll start by bringing Mr. Juday up and let him present a staff report, and then we'll open the floor to questions from Planning Commission and council members. Mr. Juday?
Oh, looks like I'm sharing the wrong screen. Let's see here. Does everybody see a slide that says MXB, Mixed Business Rezoning? Great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for having us tonight. This rezoning started a while back, back in early 2019. And I'll just talk, this presentation is going to be a little bit repetitive for the City Council and very repetitive for the Planning Commission, but I think it's useful to give it anyway for the benefit of anyone who's watching and might want to speak during the public hearing tonight. Back in early 2019, Planning Commission hosted a public meeting over in the Basic City area to talk about issues that were important to residents there. That meeting focused mostly on city services, on policing, property maintenance, and a number of those issues were addressed by the police department and the property maintenance division of the building and zoning department. We then held another public meeting where we solicited input for public projects, and there is a small project going on over there right now funded by CDBG money. And then there was another focus group that was convened to deal with land use, especially in the Commerce Avenue corridor. And that's what we would like to talk about tonight. So this project is part of a larger effort to try to address issues over in the Basic City area. We sent out a property owner survey to all the property owners that were in that Commerce Avenue, Delphine Avenue corridor. We only got 17 responses, which was it was a decent number anyway. It gave us something to work with, and we got a good feel from that for what property owners' concerns were in that area. And then we, as I mentioned, had that focus group and a series of planning commission discussions that resulted in the rezoning that you'll see tonight. To explain what's going on out there right now, the area has a very broad mix of uses. This map on the right shows in yellow, you can see low density residential, darker would be multi-family residential, red would be commercial uses, gray is all the industrial uses, and there's a couple others there. And as you can see, just about every different kind of use is present in that area of the city and all mixed together, block by block. The zoning is also fairly scattered and inconsistent. I think at some point, most parcels were simply zoned whatever they were before. So when the area was built, there wasn't really any zoning control over where uses went. And then later when zoning was instituted, properties were just zoned whatever they were. So there's abundant light industrial zoning there that allows a lot of uses that are kind of a nuisance to adjacent residential areas. And there's also other uses that might be welcome in the neighborhood that are not allowed at the current zoning. Here's a map of the zoning designations. In tan here is RG5. That's kind of our medium density general residential district that most of the downtown neighborhoods follow. And this light gray is light industrial. And as you can see that there's light industrial properties on almost every block in this area. Then you have heavy industrial parcels also right up against the residential area. And then you have this strip of local business zoning along Commerce Avenue in Delphi. And then quite a bit of local business zoning over here as well. We also ended up pulling in some properties on Ohio Street that I'll talk about in a minute. But again, just about every zoning category that we have in the city is present in a small area. The comprehensive plan doesn't give us a whole lot of guidance here. Again, the motivation for this is that we've had a lot of different issues come up where folks have approached the planning or the zoning department with a use. And we say, oh, we would like that use to be here, but it's not allowed, or that use is allowed, but we really wish it wasn't. And the comp plan is not giving us a ton of guidance. It's designating most of the area as medium density residential. That's the light yellow. And then it has this mixed use D area running along Commerce Avenue on both sides of the tracks. And that just basically says a mix of commercial and residential uses, as well as civic spaces and other stuff. What we have discussed with the Planning Commission is a number of issues that this creates for the city. And I'll go through 6 of them. The first issue is residential compatibility. We have a lot of light industrial parcels that are right in the middle of blocks of houses. And that light industrial zone, first of all, it doesn't even allow residences because it's not supposed to be anywhere near houses. It's a zone that's supposed to allow all kinds of activities that might be profitable for the city to allow to happen in the city, but that you wouldn't necessarily want to live next to. So anything from junkyards to crematoriums, all kinds of, body shop, whatever would be allowed in that light industrial zone. So that's the first problem, is that compatibility issue that drags down property values in that area. The second problem is an inability to convert those industrial properties to residences. So even if someone that, for instance, owns this light industrial parcel here, they're surrounded on all sides by single family homes. If they wanted to construct a single family home or to just convert their building to live in, even though they're surrounded by other houses, they wouldn't be allowed to do that because that's not allowed in the light industrial zone. So even if some of these properties were to want to shift back towards houses, which would be good for the block, they wouldn't be allowed to under the current zoning. And that sort of points to a third problem, which is the general inconsistency of zoning rules. What we've run into dealing with prospective tenants and property owners over in that area is folks who say, well, I would like to start this business in this on this vacant parcel. And you say, well, no, that's actually zoned residential, even though it's next to 3 other businesses. And they say, well, that doesn't make any sense. Where can I place this business? And you say, well, you could put it in this parcel, which is currently zoned light industrial. And they say, well, that's surrounded on all sides by houses. So how does that make any sense? So there's kind of a general inconsistency that we wanted to not totally correct, but move towards correcting that area. There's another set of issues that are prompted this rezoning, which have to do with the area along Commerce. The first big one is just changing market conditions on Commerce Avenue. Our comprehensive plan and the current zoning of LB is designed to be neighborhood commercial uses, sort of like downtown-ish, nice strip retail and small service stores and that kind of thing. And that made a lot of sense when Commerce Avenue was a primary commercial corridor for this area, and when you had a lot of foot traffic coming off of the railroad tracks there, which is part of the reason why the commercial area grew up along that. as you all may have noticed if you've been out there recently, it's not working for us. That it's been years now since most of those commercial uses have been very viable, even though a lot of the buildings remain. The reason is that there's simply no traffic on Commerce anymore. Commercial is going to want to locate along major corridors where there's eyeballs. And since Delphine has been widened, all the traffic now flows down Delphine Avenue. And so any demand for commercial is basically present on parcels fronting on Delphine or on East Main Street, which also has a significant amount of traffic. And because of the alignment of the roads and because of the widening of Delphine, it's not likely that we'll see any kind of significant traffic return to Commerce Avenue. There are some kinds of destination commercial that you could try to target. But again, we have a limited demand for that in the city, and all of it that we do have is we're already struggling to attract to downtown, which it also has a significant amount of foot traffic to provide. So basically, there's just a lot working against that historic vision of Commerce Avenue. And so to try to help spur some redevelopment in that area, we want to open it up to a wider range of uses. So things that might be businesses or types of residences, make more apartments possible there, not apartments, but attached housing possible there, maybe some apartments, and then also allow more business uses that might not need immediate visibility. So for instance, a service or repaired shop for like appliance repair, or for instance, a clean manufacturing operation. We had a guy at one point want to do this custom blacksmithing where they're going to create really high-end knives. But because that's a production use, it's industrial. It's not allowed in a local business district. So we've had to say no to those people, even though that's the kind of use that you could expect to have a reason to locate here. The fifth problem that's really germane to this area is the difficulty of providing parking. This whole area is very historic. It's older. There's not a lot of space like there would be in a newly developing suburban area, but the city's parking requirements are all targeted towards those suburban areas. So think about exit 94. Out there, if you were to look at it on Google Earth, pull it up on a map, you would see that most of the physical area is devoted to parking lots. And that's because there's an expectation off the highway that most people that are going to Target or to Chick-fil-A out there are in a car. Really, almost everyone is in a car getting to those destinations. And so there has to be enough parking to provide a parking space for every person that might go to those stores at their peak hours. This is a more historic subdivision pattern, more similar to what you would see in downtown Waynesboro, where you have gridded streets that distribute traffic evenly. They have a lot of on-street parking, where there's no on-street parking out on exit 94. And you have more ability to walk because you have a mix of uses. You have houses located close to businesses. People are getting around by other means besides just driving. And so for that reason, it's not really necessary to have the full parking requirement in this location. It's also a big barrier to redevelopment. It's a barrier to redevelopment in a lot of places, but it's really a barrier here. Because it was built with that historic subdivision pattern, that subdivision pattern is designed to be pedestrian accessible. And so the buildings are built right up to the street. They cover the entire block, so that they're packed more densely. And so in a lot of areas like this, when businesses want to locate in them, they have to tear down adjacent buildings in order to provide parking. For instance, you could see where the Basic City Luncheonette used to be, that buildings next door to it were torn down in order to provide the parking that the city required them to provide to have a restaurant there. And that, in the end, just kind of eats away at the viability of the area because you're having to tear down buildings that could be reused. And then lastly, we see a comparable situation on Ohio Street. So while this originally was born out of an effort to handle issues at Basic City, Ohio Street's very similar. It fronts on a railroad track. It used to be a viable commercial area, but now there's no traffic there. But there's sort of legacy commercial and industrial buildings there that it's difficult to reuse because of the zoning. And you all saw an example of that recently with the Virginia panel rezoning that was considered for a while. They ended up withdrawing their application for that specific property. But that's a clean manufacturing use, a business that's not producing pollution, it's not making a lot of noise. It would fit perfectly in one of those buildings. There's already industrial buildings there, but it's not allowed by our zoning. And just to further illustrate that traffic issue, here's traffic numbers in that area. And I've depicted the roads symbolically here, but by size of the amount of traffic. So most of your north-south traffic, about 11,000 cars a day, is going to be on Delphi. Then you'll have about 1,400 a day travel on Commerce. Versus Broad Street, you'll have about 98 100 cars. East Main, 5,000, stretching up to 11,000 cars in that area. So that's part of what makes it difficult to have retail commercial uses be viable there. So the recommendation that Planning Commission is coming to you with today is to establish a new zone. And a few months ago, Council passed the text amendment that created the text for that zone. So we already have this zone in our code now, but we have not actually designated any properties in this zone. And that's what tonight is about. It's about a public hearing to move a lot of properties into this new zone. We've called it the MXB Mixed Business Zone, which fits with the nomenclature of the rest of our zoning code. It's to be used in areas with underutilized legacy industrial and commercial buildings, so a lot of old buildings that are tough to repurpose. You want to be open to as many different ideas that people have for those buildings as possible. In close proximity to residences, so you don't necessarily want to allow the most noxious, the most polluting uses that are in an established urban subdivision pattern. And it's really not meant for use in new subdivisions. This is to ease redevelopment in older areas. The proposed uses for this zone would be very broad. There's a very wide range of them. So this will become the city's most flexible zone. Because the purpose of the zone is to reduce barriers to reuse, to try to encourage economic activity. And it's meant to be used in areas where that's a bigger priority maybe than protecting residences from nearby noxious uses. So for instance, out in a brand new neighborhood, out in an area of the city where residents are very concerned about noise and traffic and things like that, your zoning might err more towards trying to trim back some of those negative externalities, we call them, but it might also limit some business activity. Here we're talking about an area where people are accustomed to that there's already a mix of uses going on. So the market has already priced in the assumption that there will be a lot of different activities happening in a close area. And the bigger problem that we found from property owners and from our property survey and heard in all of our public meetings was that they wanted more activity, that there was just not enough business happening, not enough uses of buildings, too many vacant properties, too many derelict properties. And so what we want to err on the side of is pushing towards allowing more uses rather than fewer. So the proposal is to permit a wide range of residential and commercial uses, as well as non-polluting industrial uses. Residentially, we'll be allowing single-family homes, townhomes, and multiplexes. So it'll be the same residential set of uses that you would see in the RG5 district, which is the same district that those houses around it are in. Commercially, we'll be allowing all the retail, service-oriented businesses and institutional uses. So pretty much all of the core commercial uses will be allowed in this district. And then we'll also be allowing a number of the industrial uses that are non-polluting and non-noise generating. So clean manufacturing, uses that take place in a building, not something like a heavy industrial plant or like a DuPont or anything like that. But things like Virginia Panel, where it just looks like any other business, but there's just manufacturing going on inside. Prohibited would be any uses that interfere with the quiet enjoyment of residential property or don't bring activity into the area. So the zone will still be somewhat limiting. It will not allow, in a light industrial zone, you have the assumption that there are no houses anywhere nearby. The zone doesn't even allow any kind of housing. So what's allowed is any kind of commercial, of industrial activity that doesn't draw too many utilities, basically. So things like I said, junkyards, waste management, vehicle storage, self-storage, warehousing, a lot of heavy industrial uses might be allowed there. And so some of those uses will be limited in this district because there is an assumption that there are homes nearby. And so while maybe this doesn't provide the same level of aesthetic protection that you might get in a zone, maybe a brand new subdivision, it will ensure that people are not, that the people's quiet enjoyment of the residential property is not interfered with. And to that end, industrial and auto-oriented uses in this district will have certain limitations, like they can't operate at night. They'll have to be screened and buffered with, landscaping and fencing. And any kind of heavy auto-oriented uses will require a conditional use permit. So Council and Planning Commission will be able to impose conditions and see what it looks like before they're allowed to go forward. And the same will be true of certain other uses like contractors' offices that you all addressed last time. That's the proposed uses of the zone. The other unique thing about this zone will be its parking and site requirements. Again, because this is a historic urban subdivision style, it's very difficult for these businesses to meet the parking requirement. Typically, any kind of walkable downtown that's laid out in this way would be parking exempt. In fact, the city of Waynesboro's CB Central Business District is parking exempt. Businesses downtown don't have to provide their own parking because they can't. The area wasn't designed that way. There's meant to be shared parking that's more efficient. The MXB zone is halfway between that and the city's regular requirements. So it'll reduce the parking requirement by 50%. And there will be no parking required if there are fewer than 3 spaces required by our zoning ordinance. So essentially, if you're going to start a tiny little barber shop, for instance, and you have a little sliver, a little narrow building with street parking in the front, and maybe you only need to provide 2 spots, it doesn't make any sense for you to have to acquire a neighboring property and tear a building down. That would be a massive barrier to someone starting a business there. So those uses that just require a couple spaces, folks can park on the street, they'll be exempt. And then other businesses that need more parking, it'll be reduced, with the assumption there being that people can use other modes. There's shared parking available nearby. Here's the map of properties that are proposed to be rezoned and the logic behind it. It starts off with essentially all properties zoned light industrial in the lower basic city area. So a lot of these properties here that were light industrial will now be moved over. And so those property owners will experience a loss of some of their entitlements. They won't be able to do some of the, the most polluting, most heavy industrial uses on those properties anymore. But they'll be gaining other entitlements. Now they'll be able to build any kind of residential use there like they couldn't before. So they'll be able to build the same residential uses that the neighboring properties can. Then we're also proposing to rezone most of the LB parcels along Commerce Avenue. So those property owners will largely only experience the addition of new entitlements. So they'll now be able to bring in clean manufacturing uses in addition to the uses that they were able to build before. And then we're also proposing to convert 8th Street Extended and Ohio Street to this zone as well. Again, the same kind of situation. You have older legacy industrial and commercial buildings, but they're on a road that doesn't have any real visibility. And they're close enough to houses that you wouldn't really want them to be like a heavy industrial use. And so that's the type of area that's going to be moved into this zone. So tonight, there's no action requested. We're holding a joint public hearing with the Planning Commission, an opportunity for people to be heard. Planning Commission will go off and make a formal recommendation at its meeting next week, and then we'll bring that back to you all. Does the council have any questions for me or for the Planning Commission?
Anyone have questions for Luke?
Just one quick question, Mayor. Luke, thinking of existing uses and certainly agreeable to the notion of this creates some order and some structure and opportunity. I guess the one question I have is, in addition to just the standard, polygons, rectangles on a map in terms of parcel lines, did you all look at property conditions to help inform the suitability of this essentially a new entitlement for some properties that may be better purposed or repurposed to a more stringent residential setting? Does that make sense?
I think so. Are you saying, did we consider also downzoning properties of, more down to all the way down to residential rather than the mixed business zoning?
Yeah, I mean, there's some properties over there that I've seen on the map. I could chat with you offline about that I think are probably not long for this world. That I think are in pretty bad shape. And whereas, are we going in the right direction for all properties? Right. I mean, because in some cases it actually may make more sense to downzone it to a more stringent residential designation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we didn't consider that. We're kind of keeping it simple by just looking at the one zone. If council wants to push forward in the future, or planning commission with further downzoning, that would certainly be an option. If you just want to eliminate all these industrial uses from that area and make that a pure residential zone. I think that this will move us in that direction, in that, the market right now definitely favors conversions to residential from commercial uses. And so I think limiting some of those tougher industrial uses there and allowing those property owners to convert to residential will make that the more likely route that they would take. It would be a pretty dramatic curtailment of their current development rights to rezone to residential. And not that the city can't do that, but just wasn't sure if that was something that we had the stomach for just yet. But yeah, I think this will at least help us move that direction.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you.
Mr. Jude, I actually had a question as well, and I think I understood from the one map that you showed, which was that the current residential zoning would not change, so that it would not be a matter of any of the, on this map, the brown spaces allowing for more commercial activity. It would be here the violet or purple spaces being able to convert the other way to make it more likely to be residential. Is that correct?
That's correct. So we're not moving any, I'm sorry, we are moving, there are a couple of RG5 parcels right up here on Bayard that we are moving into this zone. But that was just for continuity of the zone so that there wasn't like weird breaks there. And it's not existing houses. We didn't convert any existing houses to this zone. You were, by and large, yes, you're correct. Everything that's currently residential is going to stay residential, and this is going to sort of move things in that direction. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
And I also should have mentioned that anybody that has an existing business or residence or other use here that's being rezoned, all existing uses are grandfathered in, and so it's not going to affect anyone's existing business. What this will affect is what they're able to do in the future. If they were to ever want to sell their business or sell the property, or if their business were to just go vacant for 2 years, then the zoning would matter.
Thank you, Luke. Anyone else have anything? All right, so let's move on to the public hearing, and I'm going to open the public hearing here in just a couple of seconds, but before I do, I want to bring up the phone number again just so that everybody has access to the phone number and the codes. So if you want to participate in this public hearing, call 844-844-9200. When prompted, enter the access code 398145 followed by the pound sign. When you hear Q&A has started, press the *6. If you would like to be entered into the queue, press the number 1. At that point, you're going to wait until the moderator tells you it's your turn to speak. When it's your turn to speak, you're limited to 4 minutes of time, so please be respectful and observe your time. I hereby open the public hearing, and I'll let the staff facilitate the calls.
A slight delay. I believe the screen share just went up with the number on it.
Okay.
Yes, we don't currently have anyone in the queue for this comment period, but we'll give them a couple of seconds here to see if anybody does pop in.
Thank you, Mr. McCormick. Hey, Sam, you are looking good tonight.
I know I had at least one business owner contact me and say that, or one property owner and say that they hoped to speak. So, a minute.
Okay, I believe we do have someone on the line. Would you like to speak to this topic? They just connected, but their microphone is muted. So if you can hear me, unmute your microphone to talk.
Is that by pressing the *6 or pressing 1?
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. Wonderful. Yes, my name is Adam Monk. I'm president of McClung Companies. We're located at 550 North Commerce Avenue. My plan in the next 6 months was to purchase that building from the current owner. It sounds like that this rezoning may create some unforeseen hurdles for me in that process. If I were to purchase that building now after this rezoning were to take effect, would the use of that building change with the existing in it?
Mr. Mayor, is it all right if I respond to the caller?
Yes, sir. I think it's important to know.
Yes. Yeah, no, this would not affect you all at all. So your existing business would be able to continue grandfathered regardless, but also this rezoning would make your use a by right use now. So as it is, McClung exists in kind of a gray area where it really is better classified as an industrial use. You have an LB zone parcel. And so it's not totally clear that it's allowed under the current zoning, but under the new zoning, yes, that would be a by right use and everything would be straightforward.
Okay. All right. And just to be clear, the business does not own that building. It is owned by another entity, and that would be the same. We would still, if we were to purchase that property, continue to rent to McClung with the same use as is right now.
Yes. Great.
Okay, so the only issue then for me is if at some point in the future that business moves out and I attempt to sell to another party and they wanted to use it for a heavier industrial, there would be the restrictions that would apply at that point.
Yes, except I believe your current zoning is LB, so you're getting all new industrial entitlements. You're not losing any. If your property was zoned LI, then there would be some new restrictions. Yes, but
okay.
For instance, like I said, actually McClung is an excellent example of part of why we want to do this rezoning, because that's a use that would not, if you wanted to bring McClung there today, it would not be allowed by the current zoning. But it doesn't make, it's not a polluting business. There's no reason it shouldn't be there.
Okay, very good. Thank you for your time. I appreciate the answers.
Thank you for calling in. Mr. McCormick, we got anyone else?
No, sir.
Did you say no?
Yes, no.
Okay. All right. With no one else on the line, I hereby close the public hearing. And Ms. Boyle, if you would like to adjourn your planning commission at this time, they're welcome to stay with us and stay for the entire meeting. But if they want to leave and got better things to do, they can exit the building, as we want to say. But it's all yours, Shannon.
Okay, planning commissioners, can I have someone make a motion to close this meeting of the Waynesboro City Planning Commission?
So moved.
That you made a motion over there? Somebody make a Okay, can I have a second?
I'll
second that.
Okay, planning commission meeting is adjourned.
Okay, thank you, Shannon. Thank you all. You're welcome to stay if you want to stay and hear the rest of the meeting out. If you want to leave, you're welcome to do so too. So thank you all for attending tonight. And the Planning Commission will consider this at their next meeting on March 16th. So if you didn't get a chance to speak tonight and want to speak, that'll be your next opportunity, March 16th.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to item number 7, which is to receive a presentation on the NRDA Lute Springs Natural Area Project. Chaffer McRae will present this. Public Works Program and Budget Manager, and consider adopting a resolution designating certain parcels subject to this project as a public recreational facility. Mr. McRae.
Mr. Mayor, thank you for the opportunity to present an update on the Lute Springs Natural Area Project to Council tonight. This is a joint project among several city departments, including the City Manager's Office, Public Works, Planning, and Parks and Recreation. We've actually been working since 2017 to secure funding for the project and purchase property for a portion of the site. So the opportunity to speak with you tonight is an exciting milestone in its own right. Just a quick overview of the project. The concept of the natural area is to create a passive recreation area as a node off the South River Greenway system. Some of the benefits would include an improved user experience by providing a more open and natural section of trail, enhanced wildlife habitat along the South River, reduced pollution from stormwater runoff. In the context of this site, passive recreation means there won't be any planned event space and very limited amenities. So uses would be walking and running, bird watching, very low impact activities for the site. Mr. Shaw just brought the map up. So the Loth Springs natural area is located at the Arch Avenue Greenway access near the YMCA and is made up of 12 acres on the 3 areas shown on the map. The Loth Springs parcel was donated to the city by DuPont in late 2019. It was kind of an add-on to the larger parking lot that makes up the South River Preserve project. Former residential lots that are owned by the city after FEMA project to abandoned dwellings that flooded regularly. This area is now used as an AT through hiker camping area. And then 5 acres that was purchased from the South River complex in January 2021. I wanted to recognize Jordan Bowman with Litton and Sipe here. He deserves a special thank you. He was instrumental in communicating with both the seller and the funding agencies during an extensive negotiation over the terms of the sale. But so those are the 3 parcels that make up this the site. The city has funding in the amount of $1.3 million from the Waynesboro DuPont settlement for habitat restoration and water quality improvements on the site. The funds are managed by a group of federal and state trustees who are representatives of natural resource agencies, the Fish and Wildlife Service and Department of Natural Resources, respectively. Approximately $190,000 is available now for design for the project, and the remaining $1.1 million is for construction. It's been committed and will be made available once the design is complete. Some more detailed elements of the site construction that are intended include stream daylighting, which is the process of opening up a stream that is currently piped underground part of the way between Loth Springs and the South River. That was the reason we wanted to buy the property from the South River complex, was to be able to open up this section of stream between Loth Springs and the South River. Stormwater practices to remove pollution from runoff that's generated from the existing city stormwater system before it reaches the South River. And then long term, we'll see the relocation of the existing fence along the greenway to allow access to that Millet South River parcel. And that's the idea of opening up the greenway through that area and making it a more friendly user experience. Limited local funds are anticipated to be needed for this project at this time. And then, as Mr. Mayor said a few minutes ago, another reason for providing this update tonight is to present the resolution to designate the Loth Springs natural area as a public recreational facility. The trustees requested City Council adopt the resolution dedicating the Loth Springs natural area as a public recreation facility as a show of good faith that the city and the trustees have a similar vision for the project site. City staff felt this was an appropriate request since the plans for the site match the trustees' goals to have an environmentally focused design that results in improved habitat and water quality within the South River watershed. After the resolution tonight, the next steps include selecting an engineering firm, which should begin in April of 2021. The firm should begin design in July of 2021. We're anticipating about a year for design and permitting. Since we're working in an active waterway, there will be extensive permitting with the Army Corps of Engineers and DEQ. So construction should start summer of 2022 and take approximately 1 year. So the project would wrap up in 2023. And that's all I had, unless you all have any questions about the project.
Anyone have any questions for Trafford?
I actually have a question. No one else has one yet. Thank you for your presentation. Is that term, the public recreation facility, is that a previously defined term in any way, or is that just sort of using our words to make sure we acknowledge that that's what the plan is?
I will let Melissa jump in here if I speak incorrectly, but that was a term that was used when Sunset Park was designated a couple of years ago, and we felt with consultation with Litton and Sipe that we could do that without stepping deeper into a planning issue as far as having to modify the comprehensive plan or anything like that.
Okay. A second question was, and this may not be something that you have at your fingertips, but will this have any positive impact on our existing agreement with the DEQ in terms of runoff and the stormwater management and things? Is that going to have any impact on that that agreement at this point?
It should have some impact on it. That's a fairly significant requirement. It's the Chesapeake Bay TMDL special condition. This project should have moderate, maybe have some moderate gains towards those goals, but there are going to be some larger projects that most likely need to be completed to fully meet those goals.
And then the last one, you mentioned limited funds may be required. Any sense, are we talking just access and roads and parking, or what are we talking about, the local funds that might be required?
I don't know that we're really far enough in design to say anything definitive.
Okay.
There have been some very preliminary conversations about possibly adding additional greenway parking there at the end of 14th Street. Maybe some minimal signage, things like that. The intent is to make this, like we said, is to try to really focus on it being a passive recreation area that doesn't need a lot of extra amenities.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Craig.
Anyone else have anything? All right. Thank you for your time tonight. Very good presentation. I appreciate it. I'm going to ask, do we have a motion to adopt the resolution designated those certain parcels as a public recreational facility?
So moved.
Thank you, Thank you, Mr. Hofstadter, for the second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye and show hands.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? This motion carries 5-0. Thank you all very much. And that brings us to item number 8. Item number 8 is to consider adopting a resolution appointing a city manager in accordance with the mutually agreed upon employment agreement. We all took part in this employment agreement here a couple of months ago, more than a couple of months ago now. This is probably last year, and it's drug out this long because of COVID. But everybody's had an opportunity to see the employment agreement and talk about the employment agreement. Do we have a motion to adopt this resolution?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Any discussion on it? All right. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? This motion carries 5-0. Thank you all very much. And item number 9 is correspondence, communications, correspondence, and calendar. Call on the city manager. I guess that's you, Mr. Hamp.
Yes, sir. Thank you. One reminder that on the 17th of March, we'll have a budget work session that will focus on capital improvements, debt, and fund balance. So a reminder that we had a slight calendar adjustment in that regard, but we'll be together on the 17th at 6 p.m.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. And I guess he stopped there, so we're done with that. Let's move on to citizen comment period. For citizen comment period, I'll read the phone number again and remind everyone before I read the number that when you come on, you got about a 4-minute limit to your conversation. If you want to take part in the citizen comment period, the phone number is 844-844-9200. When prompted, enter 398145 followed by the pound sign. If you want to enter the meeting, press *6. If you would like to speak, press 1. After you press 1, you'll wait for a cue from the moderator to make your presentation. Keep your presentation to about 4 minutes. And this is a citizen comment period. So you'll be making your comments to council. We'll be documenting, and we will not be replying to your comments tonight, but somebody will get back with you and talk about your concerns.
You do have several folks on the line tonight. I'm going to start the question and answer session now.
Okay, thank you.
Q&A session has started.
Is there someone waiting to speak?
We'll give them just a minute to get the queue going here.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to start the session.
Yes. Hello, this is Connie Wright Zink in Middlebrook, Virginia. And I would just like to say that, as our communities weigh the possibility of funding a $40 million expansion of Middle River Jail, I'd like to suggest that does not take into account the fact that Waynesboro has already contributed $26,000 to this expansion. And the jail superintendent, Jeffrey Newton, recently said that by 2029, the jail would face or could face the need for another expansion, which could require an additional hefty price tag. What I think we need to be focusing on is getting the people out of the jail that do not belong there because they haven't committed dangerous or violent offenses. Many of them are just nonviolent offenders who are waiting for their next spot to go to start the next process after they've served their time. And we need to offer, instead of mental health beds in the prison, we need to offer community mental health services and addiction services to assist our community. There is nothing worse than having a mental health program inside of a jail when they could be, living on their own and being treated to either addiction counseling or mental health counseling. So I would very much like to impress upon council that this is just going to be the beginning. If we keep warehousing people in our jails, using the jail to also house the Department of Corrections offenders who shouldn't be there either, that we're just setting ourselves up for an ongoing thousands and thousands of dollars without getting to the root cause of what is keeping people in the jail to begin with. They need help. They don't need to be warehoused. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment.
Yes, this is Chanda McGuffin, 644 Edwardian Lane here in Waynesboro, Virginia. I want to first say thank you to my camp, city manager, as well as the vice mayor and the mayor of Waynesboro for participating in the community concerned citizens meetings and bringing to the forefront issues that we can work on together. So I want to thank you all for that. I also want to thank Mayor Henderson and Vice Mayor Williams for attending the Rise Black History program that was also sponsored by the Waynesboro Historic Commission on February the 26th. You all do not know how excited the kids were to see you all there and to actually come down and to address the kids, and then for you all to present them a gift afterwards that they could go to the concession stands. It was exciting, and the kids are still talking about it, still talking about you being there. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for your participation and for you all spending that time with them that night. It meant the world to them. It meant the world to us. And we hope that we will have other collaborations in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McGuffin. Dennis, we have anyone else in Quay?
Yes, sir. We've got a few more.
Okay.
Hi, I'm sorry. Hello, my name is Guy Ricardo. I'm calling from 418 Link Road, Waynesboro, Virginia. I am calling on the Middle River expansion. I am asking the city of Waynesboro to not be part of that. I agree with the First Lady who spoke in asking that you all take the community mental health programs and the substance abuse counseling and substance abuse housing programs into effect or into thought so that we can first begin to heal our community with the epidemics that are out here right now, along with everything else, and getting our citizens back where they need to be, which is not in jails. They don't need to be fathers and mothers and sisters and brothers and children and cousins and aunts and uncles and everything, friends. Don't need to be in jail necessarily. Sometimes they need to have counseling and all their mental health needs were missed, all their substance abuse needs were missed, and we felt them. And so I'm asking that we not expand our prison systems or our jails, and that we take into consideration community outreach programs, community mental health programs, substance abuse programs. Our community lacks in them, and I think that it would be more sustainable for the future of our families, our children, our society, if we were to focus on working with getting these people the help that they needed and not putting them in jails and causing more trauma to them for the things that they've already sustained, the abuses that they've already sustained. A lot of times we need to have psychologists dealing with these people. I agree with the First Lady, we need to be getting to the root cause, and then we can figure out who needs to be jailed. But taking people outside of the home is definitely not helping in any case. So again, humbly come before you all to ask you all to reconsider the expansion on Middle River. And I just want to also say that it's kind of a common thing that we see that Waynesboro seems to have want to do more policing than they do want to do rehabilitation. And I think that that's something that needs to be looked into. The council seems to want to do a lot more policing than they do rehabilitation and fixing the problem. Although you have done some great work, I just think that we as a community need to do better on helping people before they end up in those situations where they're in jail. Thank you, and that's what I have to say tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Carter, for your comment.
Hi, I'm Mitch Narduzzi. I'm actually a resident of Stanton City, where we are here in our community having the exact same discussions about the proposed expansion to the Middle River Regional Jail. I also do consulting in the state of Pennsylvania around coalition building of a collaborative effort to develop strategic plans for communities surrounding reentry and reducing incarceration rates. So that's why I'm calling in tonight, just to, in support of some of the callers that have already spoke earlier. We cannot build our way out of this problem. If we build it, our current criminal justice system will fill it. Spending millions of dollars in a failed system is not wise stewardship of our taxpayer dollars. And it does not get to the root of the problem that most of the people that are being housed at Middle River Regional Jail do not need to be there. They are nonviolent offenders. that are often struggling with mental health and substance use disorders that need treatment outside of the jail. There is a new LEAD program out of the Augusta County Commonwealth Attorney's Office that is a pre-charge diversion program, because even the Commonwealth Attorney's Office knows that incarceration is not the answer for a majority of the people that we are sending there. One of the things that could immediately reduce the need for the expansion would be simply to have the Department of Corrections move all of the inmates that they have housed there currently, which is several hundred, I think over 300, that are awaiting transportation. Just by moving those inmates to where they are supposed to be would not only help them get into the programs that would help them earn good time, but it would save us a lot of money where we are only charging something maybe like $11 a day for Department of Correction inmates, where it would cost them over $50 a day. So our state and Department of Corrections are using our local taxpayer dollars for their own purposes. There's a mantra that we use within the justice-involved population that states there should be no decision about us without us. And no one that is making these decisions for the expansion has reached out to the justice-involved community, their advocates, their families, activists, career experts, to strategize on a better plan that would include funding ancillary services that are community-based, not jail-based. If you follow the data out of Middle River Regional Jail, you will see that those programs and services are not successful. There are a lot of people that are in there because of high recidivism rates, meaning that we are not supporting them in any valuable way to re-enter our society. So we're not using a rehabilitative or a therapeutic model. We are strictly using a punitive model that harms our whole community. It does not increase public safety. And in fact, I would say that it increases the damage that we do to families, to children, to individuals. And we have this opportunity now. It's pretty much a crisis situation where something needs to be done other than what we have been doing. So I just implore you, do your own research, reach out to the experts. This failed model that is punitive and is over-incarceration, over-supervision will only lead to the need for another expansion before we even pay this one off. So like I said, I just implore you, think outside of the box, reach out to people that know a better way, and do not invest any funding in this expansion until you have explored other alternatives that make better sense. We ask for no new beds. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Hello, I'm Danielle Henderson, and I'm in the Waynesboro district. First, I would like to say we are not the first community to deal with crowded jails. I think we should solve overcrowded jails by actually investing in our community with education and our children where it starts. I believe expanding the jail is not giving our community a chance. It's actually telling us, our younger children, that it is okay to go to jail because you're making more room. I think we should actually find a resolution and build more programs for our children to have more to do. And we should build more rehabilitation centers for the inmates and the inmates that aren't supposed to be in there, that are in there for drug abuse and things like that. We should find a way for them to seek help instead of incarcerating them, because it doesn't help at all. It's basically wasting money to expand the jail when they could end up getting back out and doing the same thing again as far as drug abuse. It's not helping them at all to incarcerate them. There's been 18 cities that took part of the MacArthur Foundation Safety and Justice Challenge. and they work with our nation's best experts in how to safely reduce jail populations. In just the first 3 years of this challenge, the average daily population of these jails dropped by 18%. In Philadelphia, it dropped by 39% in 3 years. In Lucas County, Ohio, it dropped by 29% in 3 years. And if we don't take action to reduce the number of people locked up, instead to choose and build a bigger jail, we will be in the same situation in 2029. A crowded jail, an exploding jail population. You cannot build your way out of this problem. We need to actually look at the root, and that's our community, and try to change the community and give the community a chance to grow without making the solution jail for anyone. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you for your comment, ma'am.
Yes, my name is AJ Young. I'm in the city of Waynesboro, and I'm pretty much echoing just about everybody's comments concerning the expansion of Middle River Regional Jail. What I'd like to ask City Council to do is to think critically concerning the expansion of this jail and think about decarceration instead of incarceration. Stanton, Waynesboro, Harrisburg, Leicester County, Highland County, and Rockingham County all served by this jail, when 80% of the inmates have some degree of substance abuse or mental disorder. I was pleasantly surprised to see that the opioid treatment center opened up on Pratt's Road there in Waynesboro. But from the opioid problem and the interlocking issues as a result of the opioid problem, there's lack of decent and affordable housing, food insecurity, low-wage jobs, and homelessness. So I am vehemently opposed to expanding a jail whose footprint continues to get wider because we are not dealing with these core systemic issues. How much could the community do good by adding $40 million, which I believe is the lowest option for the expansion of this jail, to infuse that money into programs, substantive programs, that will be able to help those in our community who are often unseen and unheard. But I think that those issues need to be addressed. We have right now in this country 5 states that have reduced their prison population because of thinking with a decarceration mindset. Michigan, Mississippi, Rhode Island, South Carolina have reduced their prison populations 14 to 25% because the thinking must be decarceration and not incarceration. And I certainly believe that if Waynesboro is to live up to its creed as being a hospitality in the valley place, in addition to the other cities and counties that I mentioned, then we should really look at investing in the people, in the citizens in this country who are on the fringes and that need help here locally. And so I would ask City Council just to think about decarceration as opposed to incarcerating, because as it has been stated before, there's no way that we can build ourselves out of this. We've got to start thinking critically and start thinking differently if, in fact, we want to have a community that is inviting for all people, no matter where they fall on the spectrum of life. And so thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your comments.
Yes, question, please.
Pardon me?
Yes, my name is Tim Wyan. I'm from Waynesboro. And am I on?
Yes, you are.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I was unsure. I want to reiterate what probably the last 3 callers have mentioned about voting no for the jail expansion. My introduction to criminal justice in Waynesboro and why there might want to be some reforms was when I was on jury duty many years ago. And before the jury, there was this case involving a person who had been bullied by some low-level drug distributor and made him illegally bring him something in a sting operation so that the guy could get his sentence reduced. And so the evidence from the undercover operation was clear for the jury, but most people in the jury verbalized reluctance to hand down any guilty verdict in the situation. But as we were told, we were not there to pass judgment on the merits of the state prosecutor's case, but only that the person being charged in the sting operation had aided the person who had been caught and was looking to get a reduced sentence. So, meanwhile, I'm sitting there looking at the back of the court and seeing the plaintiff's toddler daughter with her mom in the back, and the charge that we were having to deliberate carried a minimum fine and a minimum jail sentence by law. So the only thing we could do was to recommend the absolute minimum sentence, which was required. But I still feel pretty like, even all these years later, I still feel pretty helpless and hopeless just watching that process happen. And here's another good person and the provider for his household going to jail for getting roped into some shenanigans from someone else, and then used by the state to try and bring in some net of criminal activity or something. But I would hope that we could choose to lay the groundwork for something better in our communities. I don't want to like lay one block for the foundation of some like previous speaker was saying, almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy that is a bigger jail. I mean, it'll be filled up. And so I just, when I take that feeling from the courtroom that I had and apply it to this whole jail getting bigger, I just wonder what that would say about ourselves and our community if we were to go all in for a bigger jail. Like, what does that say about us, that we try and take the easiest answer without thinking about the consequence? So even if the Commonwealth of Virginia were to say that we would be willing to be a financial partner for the jail expansion, which it sounds like they might, I'd still be against it. And even if my taxes did not go up, which they probably would, I would still be against it. As a Waynesboro citizen, there are projects that I would want to help pay for, but raising taxes to raise more walls for a prison is not one of them. I would support meaningful research-based funded criminal justice reform, and I would support stuff like that. Many families have felt the sting of the system without feeling the support of our system, and I think one step toward doing things differently is figuring out what those individuals may need and have the available resources at hand, whether that be family counseling, mental health services, social workers, food or housing security, and be able to intervene with the appropriate services and support before the crisis. Otherwise, there's just another bunkmate headed toward some overcrowded cell over at Middle River. So, while blocking the expansion of jails is, it doesn't immediately change the current system. At least our vote of no might be an indication that we are ready to approach the problem from a more enlightened perspective. Again, my name's Tim Wyan. I'm from Waynesboro. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Wyan.
Hi, my name is Jordan Fuss. I am a resident of Augusta County, and I work in the city of Waynesboro. I'm calling in, like many others, to oppose the thought of expansion for the Middle River Regional Jail. As you all mentioned several times throughout the meeting, the comprehensive plan that was created identified both housing and education to be the two most important factors in the regrowth of Waynesboro. And I would like to see the tax dollars that are collected being utilized to better people's lives through those sorts of avenues that you yourselves have identified. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you for your call.
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, hello. My name's Andrea Jackson, and I'm a resident in Waynesboro in Ward A. And so I've already made a comment on the January 25th about why I was against the prison expansion. What I want to talk about is I agree wholeheartedly with all the people that was that said it. You know what I'm saying, as a good citizen, seeing the presentation on January 27th and seeing the numbers and the breakdown. And you know how I know, all the things what these people are saying is true. You know what I mean? We have, drug problems. We have recidivism rates. We have, you know what I'm saying, problems and not, funding education that would stop, the school up, the prison pipeline. We all know this, but that's not going to move y'all. And we know it. So the simple fact is that, you know what I mean, Waynesboro does not have the money to support no $40 million, you know what I'm saying, expansion. And even if we did, that's not what we should be putting our money towards. Now, we know Waynesboro is not for raising taxes. You know what I'm saying? So I want y'all, you know what I'm saying? Everybody needs to know, because everybody, it doesn't matter if you're for against criminal justice. I know a lot of people out here is not for raising the tax. And you know that you're going to have to borrow capital gains to support this. And if y'all not willing, you know what I'm saying, to borrow and invest, you know what I mean, in things that is going to benefit Waynesboro, y'all should not, you know what I mean, even think about supporting something like this. And and the thing that I don't know what his name is, the superintendent, when he came with that presentation, it was trash. And he did not answer straight for one of y'all's questions. And then y'all January 27th meeting, y'all came, and I was very impressed with every one of the city council members came with some very hard-hitting questions. City council, the city manager Mike Hampton. Now I don't know if Mike Hampton gave y'all the answers, you know what I'm saying? But y'all came with some good, you know what I'm saying, questions. Because there is a lot of questions. Like, why, you know what I mean, is the superintendent, you know what I'm saying, holding prisoners that are DOC that need to be in state prison? If he would process them and then send them on their way to the state prison, it wouldn't be overcrowded. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you just got to use your common sense, you know. The people who are not supposed to be there, take them on the state, and then you won't have no overcrowding. Why we need to spend money for overcrowding when you got people who are not supposed to be there? You know what I mean? Work smarter, not harder. Go for the easiest answer. But what I really, got to say is that I'm very disappointed in the city councilman, especially in the mayor, you know what I'm saying? My city councilman, Lana Williams, because in a meeting in February, they was like, oh, you know what? We have to discuss about how can we, address comments, etc.
Ms. Jackson, Ms. Jackson.
You said out your mouth. Wait a minute now. You don't have to respond, but I can make a statement. So you said citizens need to make appointments if they got concerns. And I know for a fact,
Jackson.
Y'all been sent emails that have been wanted, you know what I'm saying, meetings, and y'all been ignoring it. So what I need to say is, even if it's an organization that you may or may not agree with, you know what I'm saying, you guys give respect to the citizens who are in these organizations because those are your citizens. So now, tomorrow, you know what I'm saying, or this week, you know what I mean, it might be another email. Y'all better respond because that's y'all's job. Y'all don't have the choice to pick and choose who you gonna respond to or who you gonna meet with. And that's why I got mad in February because I know you're full of stuff. But then, you know what I'm saying, so I give you a chance. Send you.
All right. Any other callers on there?
No, sir. That was the last caller.
Okay. Thank you all for your comment. Item number 11, is there a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Allen.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I just have one point of just for conversation. I think at our next meeting, we'll be coming up on probably about 2 months worth of conversations that we've received, I think, at length from concerned citizens, both in the city and outside the city, about Middle River Regional Jail. I understand that that Mr. Hamps, the jail board, is meeting in early April. I would say it would be helpful, I think, if perhaps we had a conversation at our next meeting as an agenda item to have maybe a conversation with Mr. Hamp, some discussion of what the board is considering, evaluating respect to other jurisdictions, our comments that we made at the previous meetings, because we have had numerous emails, phone calls, and public conversation about this, and I don't think that we've sort of let our community know where we stand.
Okay. All right. We'll talk to Mr. Hamp and see what we can get put on the agenda.
I'll second Mr. Allen's motion.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Any discussion on adjournment? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? This motion carries 5-0. Y'all have a great week. Great 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Good night.